Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the Batman Eternal Omnibus. This is the 2023 printing from DC Comics. I'll also be comparing it to the original printing. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so what we're looking at here is the latest printing of the Batman Eternal Omnibus. You have the Batman Eternal Omnibus up at the top, this amazing, just badass image of Batman looking all manly with blood all over his chest. This is all drawn by Jason Fabok, and then you have the Bat family over here, or some of the main players, not just the Bat family. Down there's the DC logo, and then you have the creators here, because we do have a lot of creators. You have Scott Snyder's, James Tynion, the fourth, Jason Fabok, and then Dustin Nguyen. And then let's check out the spine right here, Batman Eternal Omnibus, and there's that image of Batman, and the DC logo, and then the back of the book retailing for $125. And this was previously released in 2019. So I will be doing a comparison to the previous printing internally here in a little bit. But first, let's look at the outside with really no difference in the colors on the dust jacket. We'll look underneath the dust jacket in a bit. And let's look at the spine together. Honestly, the book feels just as thick, or looks just as thick as the original printing. And yes, we will be talking about the binding, because the original printing had that way too much glue on it, making it trying to close on you. And then the back of the book, same colors. The retail price, $125 in the original and $125 in the new printing. And underneath the dust jacket, and of course we'll look at the flaps on the new printing here, we have this Gotham City will fall, the Roman Empire will rise. And then on the right hand side, some praising of Batman Eternal. So again, the 2019 version over here on the left, and the 2023 version right here on the right hand side. Yeah, no difference. Like, the image hasn't been blown up or anything. Like, it's the same. Yeah, it looks the same, honestly. So no difference there. And it's been 4 years, but I am glad that they did decide to reprint this one, because people were so worried when I announced the Batman and Robin Eternal Omnibus that they were going to be missing out on this book. And before I even go ahead and crack this open, because I am going to talk about the first issue, kind of giving you the pitch of the story without going into big spoilers, because there's a lot of twists and turns in this one. If you're wondering when to read this, I would strongly suggest reading this after the Batman death of the family in the Scott Snyder run, the New 52 era. So right after that, and then right before Endgame. So in between those two storylines is when this should be read. I think that's the best and easiest way to not spoil anything going on in Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and also that book not really spoiling what's going on here. As a matter of fact, issue 28 leads into this, of the Batman run by Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. And of course, where I'm putting it on the bookshelf is right here, right after the Batman, Scott Snyder, and Greg Capullo Volume 2. But if you're keeping them in chronological order, it definitely belongs in between both of these. So as I mentioned, there will be some spoilers, but mainly for the first issue to kind of give you the premise of this, what gets this going, what is the mystery about, and then we'll be flipping through the book, and I'll make sure that nothing's really shown that could spoil anything for you all. So let's go ahead and get started. But if you don't want any spoilers, don't forget that the timestamps are in the description of the video, and that will let you know when I'm talking about the build if you want to jump over to that and the comparison. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this book open. You have your end sheets there, and this image of Batman and Batman Eternal Omnibus. The story mainly by Scott Snyder and James Tynion, and then the scripts by James Ray Fox, Tim Seeley, Kyle Higgins, John Layman, and Scott Snyder. So there's a lot of hands here that played with these particular characters, and a lot of artists too. And I love the fact that the artists are all put together. There's no separation between the penciler and inkers, and you have your colorists over here. But you have Jason Fabok, Dustin Nguyen, and Andy Clark, and Raul Fernandez, Mikel Janin, and Javier Garon, just to name a few of these wonderful artists. And your colorists like Brad Anderson taking the top billing there, and Blonde, and John Caleese. And then the letterers, the unsung heroes really of all these collected editions or comics, Steve Wands and Taylor Esposito, the cover artist there. And then down here, Batman created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. You have this introduction here about this crazy idea being pitched to DC Comics from both James and Scott. Um, he James wanted to make it a story about Batman versus aliens, and DC and Scott Snyder immediately said, "No, we're not doing that." So instead, they went about it a different way, which I'll talk about here in a second. But before I do, what's collected in here is Batman Eternal 1 through 52 and Batman number 28. So when I say that, you're probably wondering how in the world are 52 issues of this and then there's 26 of Batman and Robin Eternal? Well, because this was a weekly series. In the way that DC saw the success of weekly series like 52 and Countdown, or the Trinity books, they wanted to make a Batman series, an ongoing series, because something needed to take the spot of Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated series that was about to come to an end. They were about to wrap up that era of Batman, and DC said, okay, it's the 75th anniversary, we need to do something special for The Dark Knight. Why don't we pitch this weekly idea to Scott Snyder and James Tynion? And I will say I think it was Mike March, the editor, that it was all in the introduction here by James, that pitched the idea. All right, so let's talk about the story. Again, I'll be talking about mainly the first issue and then showcasing some of the art throughout here. So it all starts off in the end, or the future, where we see maybe Bruce Wayne. It is somebody talking to Bruce, though, with the bat symbol just carved on his chest, and he is tied up to the bat signal. What the hell is going on? Is this how it ends? Gotham is burning? Well, that's one of the mysteries. And then we go to present day, or what was present day back then, where we meet a new detective that's joining the Gotham City Police Department, and we also have Commissioner Gordon now going after Professor Pig and some of his men because they're putting these nanobots inside of children. And when Batman finds out that Professor Pig is messing with kids, he's like, nope, not on my watch. So Batman just slams the crap out of him. So while Batman goes after Professor Pig, James Gordon is going after one of his henchmen. And I love this line. This warhorse still has some fight left in him. So awesome. So they separate. James goes after one of the goons, and this goon has like a rose tattoo on his head. And Batman again takes down Professor Pig. So what ends up happening here is while Batman's taking down Professor Pig, we have this interlude that introduces us to this new police officer that's joining the force. We see Maggie Sawyer, we see Harvey Bullock, Jason Bard, and they're finding out that Commissioner Gordon needs backup. So Commissioner Gordon ends up pinning down this guy, one of the henchmen, and he's like, put the gun down, put the gun down. The guy's like, dude, what are you talking about? I don't have a gun. And Commissioner Gordon ends up shooting this fuse box right here that just blows up beside him. And what that fuse box did is take the power down from the rails. So underneath the trains, they have no control on whether they can stop or not. And it was because this fuse box got blown up by Commissioner Gordon because he thought he was shooting something else. He thought he was shooting this thing that is no longer has power, but somehow it did. So the train ends up wrecking, and it kills a lot of people. It kills so many people. And the police department comes in and ends up arresting Commissioner Gordon, but not before Commissioner Gordon's like, you got to get out of here. They can't see us together. And Batman's like, I can stay. I thought this was such a really good moment. I don't mind leaving. And Commissioner Gordon even mentions, isn't this usually where I turn around and you're gone? And he's like, no, not this time. But the new rookie ends up arresting him. And Yeah, this is what happens. This is what sets up. So Commissioner Gordon ends up going to Blackgate Prison for his crimes because he is guilty of. Well, of course he's got to go to trial first, but he does end up getting arrested because he is the one that is responsible for these people. He turns himself in. So now it is up to Batman to make sure that his friend is clear of all his crimes, and he's gonna not gonna be doing it alone. And as you find out, Batman was looking at the surveillance camera and he notices that the perpetrator was not holding a gun, so he doesn't know exactly what Jim was talking about. So he knows there's something more at play, because this is Batman, right? World's greatest detective. To some people. Some other people don't believe that, though. But what I was going to say is that that's just one of the many things that happen in here. There's about 5 big stories happening through here. There's a huge gang war. There is this new rise of power internally in the police department because you now have Commissioner Gordon missing, so there needs to be somebody that steps up and rises to the ranks of commissioner. And that main story is told, through all those cops that I mentioned. You have villains that show up through here from Batman's Rogue Gallery, like Catwoman and Killer Croc, and then just obscure villains. But you also have the help of other characters, right? Batman has this amazing supporting cast like Red Robin and Batwoman and Batgirl. There are a couple of missing characters here because something bigger was going on after the events of Forever Evil, and that's all I will say. And whether they show up here or not, well, you can find out for yourself. There's new characters that show up through here too, like Harper Row, Bluebird, and Batwing playing big roles in here because all the team's scattered about. And then there are some other characters that show up here that are new to the Batman mythos, and they're kind of shoehorned in, like they're family members of existing characters, and you can find out who that is. And I'm not talking about Joker's daughter, I promise. I forgot that she was still a thing during this particular time. But like I mentioned, so there's the gang war, there's the let's clear up Commissioner Gordon's name, there is the whole nanotech, who created this nanotech, and it's up to Red Robin to find out who was behind the nanotech that made all those children, well, you can find out what the nanotech ended up doing. Batwing and Jim Corrigan have this amazing team up where they have to go to Arkham Asylum, and that becomes like a big horror story, and it's so well done. And then, of course, we're also seeing the storyline with Commissioner Gordon in prison and having to deal with his fellow inmates, people that he put behind bars. So it makes for a really interesting story. And the least I say about it, the better, because there's so many twists and turns in this one. Once you think you've got it figured out, and I'm not kidding, like for the first 20-something issues, the cliffhanger at the end of every issue will make you want to read more and more to try to figure it out. Because once you've got it figured out, something else gets thrown in there. Something else is like, no, that's not really what's going on. What's really going on is this. Or the mastermind behind everything is this guy or this lady. And then you're like, okay, what the hell? What is real? What isn't? And it's a really interesting story. I will say, is it for new readers? I would not read this without reading The Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, at the very least. Yes, there's a lot of ties to things that happened in the past, and you will walk out of this, more knowledgeable, but definitely a lot of things happen in Batman's past that play a big part in this. I mean, we go back to the Golden Age. Do you need to know everything? Absolutely not, because I think the creators do a really good job of reintroducing you to these characters or reimagining them, because keep in mind, this is during the New 52 era where some of these characters are making their first appearance in this particular universe. And I know that gets to be a headache whenever I talk about different universes, but that's just what we're dealing with whenever we talk about a big crisis, and after a crisis, a new universe is formed. But you have some amazing talent in here that do keep you guessing as to who is really behind everything. You even have Spoiler trying to stop this inner gang war between the Clue Master, her father, and a bunch of other villains. And then, of course, by the time you get to the end, you're like, oh, well, actually, that does make sense. Yeah, I should have figured that out a long time ago. But they really do a good job of making you guess who is behind everything. But not just who. the Y is also very important. So we'll be comparing it here in a second to the original printing. As I was flipping through here and rereading some of these stories, I was thinking, did I do an overview of this when it originally came out? I really can't remember. So I'm probably saying the exact same things I said in the past. Maybe, I don't know. But because I don't really go back and watch my old videos. You do this enough, oh my gosh, we got over 2,000 videos in the catalog. I can't remember. I just remember the stories. I don't really keep up with my own videos. Maybe I should give a listen. Maybe not. Maybe it's not a good idea. Now the covers don't tell you exactly what you're reading, what issue you're reading, or give any inclination as to who drew it. Neither is it found on the back of the cover. So that is something to keep in mind when you have the 52 issues of this that are collected, and then of course Batman 28. But it's not like, how do I put it? It's not like you're going to be lost, right? Because you know one story continues into the next one. I myself, for completeness sake, like when there are issue numbers attached to the covers. They don't have to be fully intact, but somewhere, like they did with the Young Justice, or put it in the back, because I like to know what issue I'm reading. And I'm the kind of idiot that jumps back and forth between Omni sometimes. So sometimes I would stop reading this to go back and read Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Omni. But the best advice I can give you is definitely read this in between the death of the family and the Endgame storyline. Now, all the way in the back, we have the bonus story, which is from Batman number 28. This has already been collected in Batman and Greg Capullo Omnibus. But it's weird to put it here because this feels like it should have been put after issue number 39, or maybe after issue 40 or 41, because this is the same story but told from a different perspective. So this was written or released as a tease as to what's to come in Batman Eternal, even though it was released right before Batman Eternal number 1. So it does tease a little bit as to what the future of Gotham is like. So it makes sense to put it in the back in case you want to know nothing about this and you haven't read Batman by Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. But I think it would have been okay to put it like right after that one. I think it was issue 39, where it's the same story about Bluebird and Batman going into the Egyptian. And this is drawn by Dustin Nguyen. But you can find out for yourself why I think it should have been after issue number 39 or 40. We do have just 2 variant covers. This one here by Andy Kubert, which is a Batman number 1 variant cover. And yes, I am censoring the final page of issue 28 of Batman because I don't want that to be spoiled for anybody. And then Batman number 52. So there weren't a lot of variant covers back then. And then you have the character studies here, for the different characters that will appear through this series, and character designs. Love that Dustin Nguyen art. And cover sketches. So not much in the back matter. Here's the character list, some of the important players throughout the series, and then your end sheets. Now let's take a look at the binding and then compare it to the original printing. 1,208 pages. Not that big of an eye. We've seen bigger, we've seen smaller. But I noticed with this one, it does lay better than the original printing. The original printing, which I'll compare here in a second, had this too much glue at the binding right here. So that made it almost like a rat trap, just trying to close on you. But this one lays over really nice. Like this. Now, there is a difference in the paper stock. This is using the new, thinner, semi-glossy paper stock. Damn, Batman and his eternal darkness. So many pages that are all dark. Most of the pages look like this. So I was trying to find some lighter pages. So there is some bleed through happening in some of the pages where you can see the word bubbles or the frames coming from the opposite side. Let's actually compare it to... Alright, let's go ahead and crack these open. And now that I take a closer look at it, yeah, the original printing is just a little bit thicker. But I think that has to do with the paper stock. So we have some black end sheets here. Batman Eternal. Original printing has this thick, glossy paper. And the new printing has this semi-glossy paper. So let's talk about the differences in the colors, if that affects the colors any, whenever you're talking about different paper stock. I think they did their research enough to know that, the colors are not really affected by the paper stock. It seems to be as bold and as crisp as the colors in the original printing. And my original printing, I swear to God, we'll try to close on you. It's mainly because of the binding and then the thickness of this end sheet here. Where's the new one? Hey, look at that. Very nice, right? A little thinner paper, but at least it lays over nicey. Nicey, is that a word? Uncanny Omar Tuck pretty one day. But yes, there is a difference in the paper stock, and that mainly, does affect the bleed through. But honestly, the colors, yeah, it looks as clean and crisp as the original printing. There's no smudginess or anything going on in the new printing. Colors maybe just a little bit lighter than the original printing. That's about the only difference I see. And of course, the way the book lays over. I mean, if you look at this right here, this is a mess, and this is a nice spread to kind of show the differences. Whereas this lays over nice, so you get minimal gutter loss. Nicer paper, but yeah, definitely will try to shut on you. Let's look at this issue right here. No framing or anything. This is an exact same printing as this. But the reason I wanted to come back to this issue is because there were some lighter colors here. To see just a little bit of bleed through. You can see the word bubble coming, whereas here, not really. But again, this is the stuff that I look for because I know it bothers some of my viewers. Not everybody, but I know it bothers some people. Here we go. Here's some lighter pages. So just kind of comparing it. Yeah, so just minor bleed through happening. But as far as the colors, they do look the same. And the way that the book lays over seems to be better here. But I wanted to come back to the middle of the book when the binding does affect the way the book lays over. Because in the new printing, you have it like that eye. But finally, the book, after 10 different stretchings of the spine and rereading it, actually, no, I think I only read this one time because I had the trades before this. It does look just a little bit better in the original printing than the way the new book lays over, and that's mainly due to the eye right there. And, of course, the paper stock. This feels like the paper stock they had been using in the trade paperbacks just a few years ago. I mean, it's still semi-gloss, and like I mentioned, the color still, there's hardly any difference at all. They're still as bold and crisp as the original printing. I do want to make sure I get that point across. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you already have the first printing from 2019, if you have the 3 trade paperbacks, or if you were waiting for a reprint and it is finally here. If you read the stories, what you think of this particular story, without going, into spoilers. Hate to spoil it for anybody that hasn't read it before. But yeah, I would love to know all those comments down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and ring that bell for notifications. And a big thank you to our patrons. Could not be doing this without you all. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.